Remain standing for just a moment. I'm going to have you do something with each other, and you have to be standing to do it. Not long before his death, Oral Roberts made a powerful statement. And he said, if you want to have breakthroughs in your life, if you want to be an overcomer, at some point you have to make a decision. And the decision is that you're going to determine to be a voice and not an echo. He said, most people are echoes. They echo what others say, they echo what the news media says, and they fail to realize your words create the environment that you live in. Let me say that again. Your words can create the environment that you live in. And if you speak negative words, you're trying to prosper and live in a negative environment. You speak positive words, you're living in a positive environment. Therefore, you've got to carefully listen to what you say, because what you say is creating an invisible world that you live in. How many of you want to have increase? Am I in the right place? Right. Then you want to do everything you can to be in the invisible world of increase. And one of the ways you do that, talk it. Speak increase. So that's what I'm going to have you do. I want you to find 3 people, shake their hands, look them in the eye, and say to them, I'm ready for fresh increase. Thank you. You can be seated. You know, I recognize a couple of faces that were here first service. How many of you here were here first service and you stayed over? 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, they don't work at the church. I mean, you stayed over not because you're on staff, like running sound or helping, but I mean, you stayed over because you chose to. How many? Where's your hands? Raise your. Okay, that's wonderful. All right, you're going to get unexpected increase. Those of you this. Now, let me see who you are. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I have a book. It's called PowerPoints for Increase, 101 Bible-Based Success Strategies, all of them taught in a 2-page format. You can read a chapter in 3.5 minutes. And it's full of some of the great stories of some of the people I speak with in the secular arena. I speak not only to churches, but speak to audiences, sometimes 10, 20, 30,000 people in the secular arena. And I get to share the stage with some great leaders. For instance, one day I had lunch with Margaret Thatcher and dinner with Gorbachev. I mean, that's just a high day, yeah. But so we've written this book. It's an incredible book of Bible-based success strategies, and it's introduced with unusual newspaper headlines, like blind man robs bank, can't find way out. Man trapped in outhouse overnight, comes out in stinky mood, you know, things like that. So those of you that chose to stay over, after service, you go back. I'm giving you the book free, and I'm going to autograph it for you. All right? That's unexpected increase. All right? Yeah. The rest of you, if you want to get it, it retails for $20. You can have it for half price, $10. And I'll autograph it. Or 2 for $20. That's a real deal. But increase is not a money message. I think right off the bat, we got to get rid of a misconception. Increase is not a money message. Increase is a thinking message. It's a mindset that says, I am not a victim. I am not trapped by pressures of others, whatever it might be. But I can choose to change on the inside, and by changing the inside, I can overcome my outside world. Increase is a message of personal empowerment. That we are not trapped by external circumstances, but we can be victorious even in the midst of negative circumstances. Now, let me read you a testimony I read to the first service. Within 6 months, my business more than doubled. I got more involved in my church. My marriage has never been happier. My wife and I are running around like 2 teenagers in love. I've been totally cured of cancer, and I lost 75 pounds. Wow. I mean, I would say that's a pretty good turnaround. Yeah. Well, it is so great to be with you, and you know, 3 of my 5 children live in the Seattle area. So I love to come up here whenever I can, and so we've been spending several days with them. Last night we went to the Seahawks game, and I think they could have a winning team this year. I mean, I don't know how many of you watched the game or Seahawk fans. They scored in the first play of the game. at 10 seconds into the game, the Seahawks were winning. Now, that's a good sign, I think, you know? Yeah, so now all they got to do is decide who their quarterback's going to be. Yeah, but it's just, you know, and it's great that I was able to fly here and I arrived with my luggage. You know, you know, you go through all these kind of challenges. I'm a lover of TSA. I have to say that. But you know, you would think with computerization, the lost bags would be a thing of the past. Oh my goodness. I was so frustrated. I was in St. Louis checking my bags with a SkyCap. I said to him, sir, I am flying to Tulsa, but I want you to send my bags to Tucson. He looked at me and said, I'm sorry, sir, we can't do that. I said, why not? You did it the last 2 times I flew with you. Or I don't know if you had this frustration, but some of the TSA agents just have no idea. I mean, they're just not sure what is okay and what's not okay. You know, I had one time they confiscated my Scotch tape. You know, like I'm going to use my Scotch tape to tie somebody's hands. I was standing in line. This one lady was having this problem. I couldn't help but overhear it. An elderly lady, and they were taking away her knitting needles. Yeah, and she said, "Why in the world are you taking away my knitting needles?" And the agent said to her, "Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's government policy. We have to be sure you don't try to knit an Afghan." Okay. Okay, moving right along. But I shared with the earlier service, I've been to over 50 countries in all 50 states. Next year will be our 30th anniversary of traveling the world with the message of increase. But really my roots began here in the Seattle area. A very good friend of mine now and a board member of my ministry, a man named Don Ostrom, out of City Church. I used to be head of a very large Christian businessmen's organization. In fact, he had the largest chapter of membership in the world in Seattle. And they put on a men's events over here at a place called Warm Beach. I have no idea why they call it that. All the times I've been there, it's never been warm, and I haven't seen the beach. But anyway, and he booked me to come and speak there. And September, I said 78, it was actually 77, September 11th and 12th, 1977. And up to that time, all I'd done was share a testimony of a great turnaround I'd done at a business and how God had blessed my life. And I get up there and they say, "You're speaking 3 times." And I couldn't figure out how to get the testimony to stretch 3 times. So I got desperate, went to prayer. That's a good thing to do when you're desperate. And at Warm Beach up here in this area is when the teaching anointing came on me, and my life totally changed. And a short time thereafter, got out of the business world and now doing what I've been doing. So it's always great to be here in this area and to see back to an area that's impacted me. By the way, we are going to be back in the area a week from Tuesday night. We're going to be speaking at a seminar called Power to Produce. And it's going to be held, I don't know why I have trouble with this name, Tulalip. It just doesn't look like Lay. Tulalip. I'll get it right. The Tulalip Resort. Woo! And we're going to teach some of the practical keys of making increased work. And so if you'd like the information on it, you could go to our website, increase.org, or our host is Power to Produce Seminars. So you could pull up Power to Produce and get information on it. And that's going to be Tuesday night, October the 28th. Turn, if you would, please, to Luke, the 5th chapter. You know, I'm just so proud of your pastors and the price that they are paying and what they've sacrificed to be here. I don't know if you ever had a chance, maybe you haven't, one of the great churches that I've spoken for many years, it was first time I spoke there was 1984 in Miami, and I still speak there. It's a big mega church now. Stan and Jerry Moore, and God called them into ministry, and he said, "But I'm only 1 year away from full retirement at the school district, so I'll go in a minute. I'll make the change next year." And God says, "No, I'm calling you now." And he gave up the full retirement in order to heed what God told him to do, and God has blessed him, blessed the church, blessed their children, and I'm believing for the same thing for you, for the sacrifice you've made. How many of you agree with that? How many of you are glad they're here? Yeah. Also at the conclusion of the service, Pastor mentioned that he's going to receive an offering for our ministry. This is not an offering for me. My salary at the ministry is $1 a year. My money comes from outside sources and royalties and other things. But I seed my life into this message, but you help us to bring this message into the lives of other people, particularly in third world countries. God has opened the doors tremendously for this message in countries like Mexico, countries like Brazil, and now Russia. And it's just life-changing to them. Let me read you this testimony from Tim Rogers, head of Rhema Mexico. Since you came to Mexico and held an increased seminar, great things began to happen. Our people began to receive raises and unexpected commissions. One member the following week received the entire year's salary as a bonus. In 6 months' time, the church finances increased 400%, and the size of the congregation doubled. That's what you help us to do, bring a message to them that can cause that kind of a change. Because when we go there, we normally pay our own expenses, and we're giving up an offering or an income from being on a Sunday. And so you help us to offset that and to help other people. You say, why do I care? Because I believe what you make happen for others, God makes happen for you. And I truly do believe that. Have you found Luke the 5th chapter? Oh, one more thing. Pastor mentioned our seminars. Our next Increase Summit is going to be October the 11th to the 13th. And it's 3 days in Palm Springs. Have any ever been to Palm Springs? It's the playground of the rich and famous of California. And we have some great speakers there. Linda Warren, the former marketing director for Disney World, personal assistant to Michael Eisner of Disney Corporation, is going to be a featured speaker. Dave Martin, Mark Carpenter, Jude Fouquet, Mike Rovner, just a great lineup. We have an early bird registration discount. If you want to get it, we have information on that. And then our big seminar every year is in Hawaii. That's next March. Miles Monroe, John Bevere, and a host of leaders from around the world. You can get information on those back at the table. Luke, the 5th chapter, is a great story. It's one of my favorites. It's a story of some business people who did what they'd done before, and it resulted in increase. But this time when they did it, they had decrease. It said that they fished all night and caught nothing. But then they had an encounter with a man named Jesus as they were getting ready to quit and go home. And as a result of that encounter, in the same 24-hour period that they had great decrease, they had their greatest increase. Now, it's not my topic today, but I do want to plant the seed into your heart. God can change your life in one day. Let me say it again. I want to be sure you catch this. God can change your life in one day. He can have you meet one person, get one phone call, get one idea, sell one property, one change, and your life can be dramatically overhauled in one day. It happened to me. It's happened to me on several occasions, but one in particular was I had a small automobile renting and leasing company in Southern California. I took a customer's car in to get service. The owner of the dealership was out on the service drive. He started talking to me and he says, how's things going? I said, we just had our all-time record-breaking month. He said, you did? We need to talk. Come in my office. I go in his office and he said to me, I wanted to talk to you because we just had an all-time record-breaking loss month. In fact, this morning I called Chrysler and told him I'm shutting down the dealership. I said, why would you do that? He said, well, the good salespeople have left. We've run out of money. And we still have 100 of last year's new car models in stock, 100 of them, and we're 3 months into the next model year. 90 of those are 8-cylinder gas guzzlers, and 10 of those are International Harvester pickup trucks. And he said, we figure we can't make it in normal times. We're never going to make it in bad times. Take our loss, shut it down. But then he said, as I was talking to you, I got this revelation. Oh my goodness, if he's having a record-breaking month at the same time you're having a losing month, maybe he can save your dealership. He said, how would you like to come in and try and turn around a Chrysler store? And so we came into that situation really not knowing what to do. And again, it's not my topic. I don't want to get sidetracked. But I do want to say this, and this may be for you too. Any door that God opens, the provision for the door he opens will follow the open door. God does not open doors without having provision for the doors he opens. But the mistake that many people make, they think the provision is money. So they wait for money to start moving. See, many times the provision is not money. The provision could be ideas, could be strategies, could be meeting a person. And that could be the provision. See, I didn't need money to save a dealership. So what if the bank gave me $250,000 or $500,000 and said, here, we believe in you, this will help you get rolling. And what if I just did what they did? I just blew through money like they blew through money, and it just means I delayed bankruptcy. I didn't change anything. So money wasn't my answer. What was my answer? Strategies, wisdom. God, what do I need to change that they did that didn't work, that I can do better, or that needs to be scrapped altogether? I said, God, show me the changes. And he showed it. Make a long story short, things got a lot worse in the external world, because then the gas prices doubled. Gas stations were only open an hour a day. It was a nightmare. We're trying to sell 8-cylinder cars across from gas stations that are closed. We're only open an hour a day with gas lines 1 and 2 football fields long, waiting to get gas. But see, when God gives you a plan, and when God gives you a blessing, it doesn't matter what's happening out there. You're going to be able to be successful in spite of it. In a 90 days' time in that environment, not in a normal environment, in that environment, we were able to increase sales 300%. The dealership skyrocketed to the top 10 in Southern California. The following month, I bought the dealership. And that's really what got me in the speaking arena, is people began to book me to share, what did you do and how did you do it? And I realized that was the call of God on my life. But all that to say is, God can change your life in one day. I took a car in for an oil change, and I drove out with a dealership. I think that's a pretty big change, don't you? Yeah. All right. So this is that change. So let's read the text, and we'll get into what I want to share with you. And it came to pass that as people pressed upon him to hear the word of God, that he stood by the lake. And he saw 2 ships standing by the lake, but the fishermen were gone out of them, and they were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and he asked him to thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. And when he finished speaking, he said to Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for great increase. And Simon answered and said unto him, Master, we have toiled all night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. And when they had thus done, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, so much so that the net began to break. And they beckoned unto their partners which were in the other ship that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both ships, so much so that both of them began to sink. What an incredible turnaround they experienced. The first thing I want you to notice was that the fishermen had a choice. They had an encounter with Jesus, and Jesus gave them some instructions on how to turn this situation around. But they didn't have to do what he said. They could have chosen to stay with the empty boats and the empty nets. And by the way, that was the safest thing to do. There's a risk in going out and trying, particularly trying something different. There's no risk in staying there. They could say, oh, it's not my fault. You know, the fish are just gone. You know, everybody's having fishing problems. And, you know, and they could go find their other friends that had empty boats. And they could, you know, just say, oh, yes, I got an empty boat too. And, yeah, we'll just have to wait for the fish to come back. And they could start an empty boat Bible study and maybe an empty boat church, maybe even an empty boat denomination. You know, but so we always have a choice. And the choice is, are we going to accept where we are, or are we going to try and do something to change what we've just been through or where we are in order to experience the increase? God never removes us from the ability to make choices. And so some people, when they get into a desperate situation or a negative situation, they just blame it on outside circumstances. They say, I'm stuck. And I always say, no, you're not stuck. You know, the fish, how many of you know the fish did not all die off? The fish didn't die, or they couldn't have caught them later on at a different place, right? The fish merely moved. And so the secret of success was going where they were, I'm going where they had gone to, not where they used to be. And what changes that they need to make. And this story is not a story of the miracle of Jesus. This is a story of change. Change. What changes did he have them make? First thing I want you to notice, and we introduced this at the last service for those of you who were there, but I think review is great. The things I learned the most is things I've heard more than once. And that is, this is not just a story of personal increase. This is a story of the purpose of increase. See, you can be self-motivated and self-focused and have short-term success. But if you want to have long-term success, you have to be focused on more than just you. Because once your immediate needs are satisfied, then you burn out and you say, where's the drive I used to have? Because the drive was related to you personally getting somewhere and accomplishing something. But if your drive and your focus is on others and being a blessing to others, see, that never stops. That's continuous. That's not a destination. That's a journey. Personal, see, when you're focused on self, you arrive at destinations. When you're focused on others, it's a journey. And so, see here, we see the purpose of increase. When their boats were full, the first boat, and their nets were filled, what was the number one thing that they had an impulse to do? If you're in a boat that's in danger of sinking, what's the first thing you're thinking about? How not to sink, right? Right. So they're thinking, what's the best way not to sink? Get to shore. So their whole thinking, mindset is get to shore, but they didn't do that. What does it say they did? Looked around and saw another empty boat. Called that boat over, and now 2 boats are full. And there's the purpose of increase. Increase is not just about your boat. Increase is about other people's boats. And out of your increase, you can make a difference in the lives of other people. Now, notice that for them to make a difference in the lives of somebody else did not result in a transfer. It wasn't that they took their fish and because they had love and compassion, they moved the fish over to the other boat. Now they have an empty boat. It says both boats were full. And we see a pattern how God works. And the pattern is he gives seed to the sower. You make a choice to be a sower. When you make the choice to be a sower, then you trigger a law of the universe, a law of God to start working, and that is, I see a sower, I'm sending seed. So he gives seed to the sower. He gives fish to those who give away fish. He gives money to those that give away money. So being a giver is not living a life of less than because I want to make a difference in others. It's a life of more than because we now have a blessing on what we have. Because there's a flow that God wants to maintain so we can be a blessing and make a difference in the lives of other people. That's why virtually everybody that I have known over the last 30 years that has had long-term increase and long-term success, they're givers. They're givers. Because their focus is not on hanging on, not on hoarding. Their focus is on releasing. Earlier service, I shared a story just last Tuesday night. We were out to dinner with Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and if you're not familiar with him, he's got a great book, Thou Shalt Prosper, and he speaks oftentimes at City Church and different groups. He's got a radio show. Anyway, he shares the story about 2,000 years ago, there was a siege in Jerusalem. And during the siege, they were out of water and they were out of food. They were desperate. And somebody came up with the idea of let's get a whole bunch of guys and let's dig a tunnel underneath the wall beyond where the enemy troops are to the other side. We'll go out and get provision and bring it in and they won't know that we've done it. So they dug this long tunnel out there and they brought provision into the city to help them survive during the siege. Well, after the siege was over, they didn't need the tunnel anymore. Nobody thought about it until the Six-Day War in 1967. And then the thing had reversed. Now the enemy was in Jerusalem, and they needed to come in and do a battle to try and get the city back. And somebody said, remembered historically that tunnel from 2,000 years ago. So they found out where it came out, and they used that tunnel to send troops in order to get the city back. And what the rabbi said was, he said, but they dug a tunnel for the purpose of one thing, but because the tunnel was there, it now became a tunnel the other way. So when you dig a tunnel to go out to be a blessing, that tunnel becomes the way that God brings a blessing back into you. The same tunnel that you did. That's why, see, anytime I'm in a situation where things aren't increasing the way I think they should, anytime I'm in a situation where like registrations aren't working or finances are not working or whatever it might be, you know what I think? I don't think about what can I do to get, I think about what can I give. How can I dig a tunnel? Because the very tunnel I dig to go out is the tunnel that's going to be used to come back. And so it's a whole change of focus that an increased person has, and we see that here in Luke the 5th chapter. It wasn't a focus on, I got my fish, get them to shore, sell them. These guys, too bad, that's their tough luck. Oh, man, okay, you're going to get something different that other servers didn't get. What caused the increase of the first boat? Think about that. What caused them to experience the increase? Obedience. They obeyed what Jesus told them to do, and because they obeyed it, they had increase. But what caused the increase of the second boat? Think about it. What caused their increase? What they chose to hang around. The law of attachment. They got increased because their friends had increase. So the first one got increased through obedience, but the second one got increased through attachment. And I say that to you because if you want to live a life of increase, you've got to attach yourself to where increase is happening. In some way, some form. Through listening, through reading, through relationships, whatever it might be, because what you choose to attach yourself to is what's going to really happen to you in your life. And so maybe one of the things we need to do is examine our attachments. All right, so let's go on. So Jesus sees their empty boat, and he cares. I think that's really important for us to notice that. Look how Jesus reacted to their lack. Actually, look how he didn't react. Jesus did not say, I'm only here for spiritual things. I'm only here for healings. I don't have anything to do with money. Money's bad. I don't have anything to do with finances. I'm not involved in finances. He said, that's you guys, that's que sera, sera, what will be, you'll be better, you'll learn life's lessons, and life has seasons, up and down. This was a down one, but up will come. No. He cared about their lack. And if this is not an isolated incident, throughout the New Testament, just with an open mind, read the New Testament and just with one question, ask yourself one question. It was revolutionary for me. How did Jesus react to lack in each situation where he came to it? And you know what you'll find? Every time he came to a situation of lack, he cared and he did not leave until the lack left. Whether it was they were out of wine, he handled the situation. They're out of tax money, he handled the situation. They're out of food, he handled the situation. They're out of fish, he handled the situation. And if Jesus is the same, and we really believe that, yesterday, today, and forever, and if he cared that they were in lack, he cares that you're in lack. He cares about your situation. He doesn't just care when you're sick. He doesn't just care if you sin. He cares about where you are economically. He cared about them. So, he wants to change their situation, and why he could just do a miracle. I mean, Jesus could just speak and fish would jump out of the water onto the shore. Yeah, he could just do a miracle. All throughout the Bible, he did miracles. In fact, I actually think this would be a bigger thing in the Bible. Luke 5th chapter would be one of the greatest stories of the Bible if it was the story of Jesus calling fish out of the water and the fishermen just collected it. But he didn't do a miracle. Why did he not do a miracle? Why did he tell them they had to take the boats back out again? There's a life lesson here. The reason is, if he did it for them, the next time they were in a situation of lack, what did they have to do? Find the person that did the thing for them to come and do it again. But if he did it with them, see, then their faith grows. They've experienced it. They now could do it without him because they've learned what it takes to do it. And so in life, most of the time, there are times God divinely does incredible miracles. My father was dead. They'd already unplugged the life support system. The nurse is standing there with a sheet over her arm, getting ready to put it over his lifeless body. Just when my pastor walked in the room, praying, driving down the freeway to get to the hospital, full of faith. And he comes into that situation and he calls forth life. And my dad came back to life and lived another 8 years. There are times that God does miracles. One of the first 5 people hired to open up Oral Roberts University, the co-founder of the largest school of the Bible in the country after he died. That's what he did. So there are times that God does things for us. But most of the time, he's going to do things with us. As we do it, he empowers us. As we do it, he directs us. As we do it, a spirit of favor surrounds us. As we do it, we get associations or meetings or whatever it takes to make it happen. And that's what he did here. He didn't say, I'm going to generate fish and they're going to jump. He said, you're going to have to take the boats out again. You're going to have to take it out and fish again. But when you do it, if you do what I tell you to do, you're not going to have decrease, you're going to have increase. So if it's a story of change, let's take a few minutes and look at just 3 of the changes he had to make, because I think these could really help each one of us. Number 1, he told them to change the time that they went fishing. They fished all night. It's easy to miss this. Why do you think they fished all night? They had insomnia? They had a day job and this was their second job? No. They fished all night. I found out a commercial fisherman in Newport Beach told me, a friend of mine. He said, I was out to breakfast with him. It looked like he needed toothpicks to keep his eyes open. He'd been fishing all night. I said, why are you fishing all night? Why don't you fish in the day? What he said to me was revolutionary. He said, I'm going after big fish. To go after big fish, I have to have thick nets. If I fish in the day, the sunlight shines in the nets, the fish will see the nets, and they will not swim in the nets they can see. Therefore, I have to fish at night so the fish don't see the nets. So Jesus is telling them to fish at a different time, but not just a different time. He's telling them to fish at a time that in their minds they knew didn't work. Past experience, past knowledge said this isn't going to work. But maybe it didn't work in the past, but it works now because things have changed. We have to recognize that. So he told them to fish at a different time. Maybe you're doing the right thing, but your timing is off. And if your timing is off, things aren't going to be the same. If you doubt that, ask the people that did the fireworks show in San Diego for the 4th of July. They had 3 different stations set up for this great big 20-minute fireworks show. There was a short circuit. All of the fireworks went off. In 5 seconds, all of them blew off and the show was done in 5 seconds. So people are sitting there waiting for that was the beginning. No, it was the ending. Why? The timing was off. What's the secret to making money in real estate? More important than location, timing. Timing. I don't care if you bought the best location of real estate in Seattle in May of 2008. I don't care if it's the best location you could get. By October of 2008, you wish you didn't own it. Because timing was more important than location. What's the most important thing in selling stocks? Timing. Almost anything you want to, cooking, timing, catching a pass, timing. The interception that the Seahawks, what was that the third quarterback, the one from Wisconsin? Wilson, the only reason that interception took place was he waited 2 seconds too long to throw the ball. He gave the defender time to catch it. His timing was off. If he'd thrown the ball 2 seconds sooner, it could have been a touchdown. Instead, it was an interception. So timing is the key in anything we want to look at. So I would say to you, examine your timing. Your timing. And God can help you with this. I think there's a part of natural timing. We get natural knowledge. We learn timing. We study trends. My son-in-law Josh is an options trader, and he's always looking at these things going up and down. He lives and dies financially by timing. So timing is a key part of that, but also there's a spiritual side of timing. If we take the time to regularly praise and worship the Lord, if we take the time to read His Word so His Word is directing our life, if we minimize outside influences, increase God's influence, we're going to begin to walk in a timing where literally our steps are directed of the Lord. I shared in the earlier service, I wanted to tell you how I met a man named Mark Carpenter. Mark Carpenter is, I won't tell you what he is now, but I'll tell you what he was then. I didn't know Mark Carpenter from Adam. I'm speaking in Atlanta, Georgia, to one of the Get Motivated seminars with Zig Ziglar. And we're staying at the 42-story Marriott Hotel right by the convention center. And I was visiting with friends at the concierge floor. And in that hotel, it's really kind of different. The concierge floor is like in the middle. Normally they're at the top floor. Well, the beginning was 42 floors high. They put it in the middle so it'd be convenient for everybody. So I walk out the elevator, hit the button for the elevator to go up to our room. The elevator goes down. And it didn't just go down the lobby, it went down to the basement. And when the doors opened, there's this man standing there, dripping wet bathing suit, holding his clothes out like this with a pair of tennis shoes on the top. I remember seeing those. And so he gets into the elevator, and I've started a very interesting conversation. I said, "Have you been swimming?" I looked back and I said, that was so. But he said, yes. He said, they told me that the locker room closed at 10, but they didn't tell me they were going to lock it up at 9:45. You know, the pool closed at 10, but they locked the locker room at 9:45. So he has no towel, nothing. He's just dripping wet going up to his room. So just think now, you're standing there next to somebody in a wet bathing suit. So I just said to him, I said, "Oh, are you here for the seminar tomorrow?" He said, "Oh, no." I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm from Seattle." I said, "Are you here for the seminar tomorrow?" He said, "No." He said, I'm a plumber. I own a plumbing company in Yelm, and I'm here for a plumbing meeting." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "I get to Seattle oftentimes I'm a speaker or to speak." He said, "Well, where do you speak?" I said, "Well, different places. I was just recently at a church called Christian Faith Center. A man named Casey Treat pastors there." And he said, "Oh, my goodness." He said, I know that church." He said, "In fact, I was just talking to somebody this morning that was at that church last week." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Who is it? Maybe I know him." He said, "His name is Don Ostrom." I said, "Don Ostrom? Don Ostrom is one of my best friends." He said, "You got to be kidding." I said, "What in the world were you, Don, talking about?" He said, he was telling me that I needed to come to this Increase seminar in Hawaii. I said, "Was that put on by Bob Harrison?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Pleased to meet you." Now just think about it. A businessman from Seattle meeting a speaker from Tulsa in one of the 8 elevators that are running up and down all day long. That one elevator, at that one moment, Mark came to the Increase event. It changed his thinking. The next year he brought 6 people. The next year he brought 43 people. He's been a part of it ever since. He's now on our ministerial board, one of the biggest donors to our ministry, and was the only person outside of my family that was present when my first wife passed away in the hospital. So the relationship we had, and it all came from what? Timing. Timing. So timing is such a critical part of success. Right? The second thing he told them, he said, "I want you to go to a different location." Location. See, many times the reason we're not successful, it's a thing called location frustration. Location frustration means where you are is working against you rather than working for you. In other words, one time that place in the lake worked for them, but now the fish aren't there, so it's working against them. And going back to the same place is giving them the same negative results. But we keep going back there and saying, "Oh, we don't know what's wrong. The fish aren't there." Well, the fish aren't there and they're not coming back. So we have to then move to a different location. We have to examine, where have the fish gone? If they're not where they used to be, where are they now? That could be a major change. It could be a geographic change. Your pastors, I admire them so much for not just driving up here and being, transient pastors and going back to where they're comfortable, where they have roots, but making the move up here. See, that's a major change. And I admire them for that so very much. I hope you do. That's a real price they're paying to be up here. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. But most of the time, it's just a minor change. I was walking out of a restaurant in Tulsa, and this man called my name. I turned around, and he said, I heard you're teaching on location frustration. He said, "I was a barber in Tulsa, working 60 hours a week, cutting hair, barely able to make ends meet." He said, and I got inspired by that, and I said, "Okay, what could I change? How could I change my location?" And he said, "I came up with the idea of moving to the better end of Tulsa, the upscale end of Tulsa, and change my name from barber to hairstylist." He said, "I did that, and last year, cutting hair, I made over $100,000. So he went from barely able to make ends meet and to great abundance just by a minor change. In the last service, we had this lady came up to me, and she told me that same thing impacted her. She was in real estate, and she heard me speak at last year, I think it was at the seminar at the Tulalip. I got it right. Hey! All right. And she said, as a result of changes that she made this last year, she made just under $200,000 in this area selling real estate. If you're making around $200,000 selling real estate in this market, you're doing okay. But see, so sometimes it's a minor change that we have to make. Sometimes it's a temporary change. That it's just Zacchaeus is a great example of that. Zacchaeus couldn't see Jesus. He climbed out on a tree. He could see Jesus. Jesus was at his house as a result. What minor change that might we need to make? I love sharing the success story of the dealership, how we turned it around and got to the top 10. Everybody began to book us and all this stuff, but we went through a tough season. It didn't look like Chrysler was going to make it. I'm trying to sell cars of a company that the headlines are saying they might close before the year's up. People are worried about the company, worried about the warranties, worried about, having orphan cars and what's the value going to be. We went through a tough time, and there were some days I couldn't handle the pressure. Didn't know how we were going to have the money for taxes. Didn't know how we were going to have the money for payroll, whatever it might be, and I didn't have an answer. I found out one of the best things I could do? Make a temporary change. I found a place that really helped me. 2 miles away from the dealership, there was a park with a pond with ducks in it. And I would leave the confusion and the non-answers of the dealership. And I would just go and walk around that lake and just praise and thank God for the answers and thank God for his inspiration, his direction. I'd come back to the dealership and every problem that I left with was still there, except I was different. So sometimes just a temporary change can do that. Our increase events are that. We give people a temporary change and bring them to a luxury resort in Hawaii or California, surround them with achievers and leaders, and can impact their lives in a way we couldn't do it in their own environment. So maybe it's a temporary change you need to make. Or the third thing he told them to change, he told them to launch out into the deep. What does deep represent? Deep to me represents something beyond normal. Anytime you see the word deep, it means something that isn't normal. Deep sea fishing, deep pan pizza, deep water drilling. What are some other deeps? Come on, anybody else? What other deeps? Deep fast, deep fat frying. Yeah, some of them aren't good, but deep means beyond normal. Our ministry put on a banquet years ago honoring Oral Roberts' 50th year in ministry, Christian Leader of the Year. And during the process, I interviewed Oral, and I asked him, how did he become the man that had the largest healing tent in the world, then the #1 national television Christian program, raised over $100 million to build the City of Faith, but raised up Oral Roberts University, which I believe is the finest Christian university in the nation. How did you do all that? And he said, years ago I made a decision that I would never do anything in a normal way. See, that's deep. We make a decision that we'll never do anything in a normal way. Deep also means deeper commitment. Deep commitment. I'm committed that I'm going to do this, come hell or high water. In spite of the circumstances, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to see the thing through. See, what's the problem with many people is they don't have that deep commitment. They're kind of like the young man that wrote a love letter to his girlfriend. Let me read it to you. He said, I would be willing to crawl through a pit of snakes just to look at that lovely face of yours. I would climb to the highest mountain peak just to gleam in those blue eyes that nature has endowed you with. I would swim the highest swollen river just to be at your side. And he signed it, lovingly and devoted to yours. P.S. I'll be over Wednesday night if it's not raining. See, that's the way many people make their commitments. So I would say to you, see, what you're doing in normal times that'll cause you to be successful will not work in non-normal times. When the pressures increase on the outside, you've got to increase on the inside or you lose. You've got to change the balance. So if you're used to 15 minutes of devotion and then go to work, 15 minutes isn't going to work in bad times. You need to increase it to 30 minutes or all day long or whatever it might be. But you've got to take that, whatever areas it is that are important to you of your turnaround, and you've got to make a deeper commitment. See, deep means the net has to go lower. They had to have more work. They had to put in more effort. They actually had to have more faith. Because the deeper you go, the less likely you're going to see the fish. Just by faith you're putting the nets down because you can't see down deep. And so, and that's what changes many people's lives. That's why in Joshua 1:8 it says, this book of the law thou shalt scan through once in a while. How do you know it doesn't say that? This book of the law thou shalt meditate therein day and night. What does meditate do? Deep. Then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and thou shalt have good success. When the word gets deep, see, becomes a part of our operating system, then it works for us. I had a Tommy Bahama blue sweater that I just loved. And about the third or fourth time I wore it, it got a salad stain on it. Didn't seem like anything too big, except for some reason I put it in the wash, the stain wouldn't come out. I put spot remover on it and put it in the wash, as they say, you know, spray and put it in, the stain wouldn't come out. I washed it twice in a row and the stain wouldn't come out. And so finally I said, I guess one of my favorite Tommy Bahama sweaters is now a work sweater because I can't wear it with this stain on it. And then I saw this book on removing stains. So I got this book and turned it to salad dressings, and it said, don't just put the spot remover on and then throw it in the wash. Put the spot remover on, then put soap on and rub it in. Then put more spot remover on again, then put soap on and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. Let it soak in. Let it go deep into the fiber, and then wash it. I did that, and the stain was gone. See, so I had the right ingredients, but because they didn't go deep, the stain didn't go. But when I let it go deep, then the stain was removed. So sometimes success is not that we're doing the wrong thing. We're just not getting it deep enough. We're not taking the time for it to work in the way that it needs to work. So ask yourself, are there habit patterns or things that maybe you need to do more of and get deeper in? Which brings me to my final point. Deep is what I'm all about, but it's deep thinking. Something I learned years ago, and I actually learned it in the secular arena and found out it was a biblical principle, was understanding how our mind operates. This is a 45-minute session. I'm going to give it to you in 3 or 4 minutes. So fasten your safety belts. We're rolling. All right? And if, I just want to give you enough of an overview that you understand deep. Our minds operate not with one brain. Our minds have one brain but 2 separate operating systems, like a computer with 2 separate operating systems. One does one thing, one for other. You might have one for graphics and one for Word. You know, there'd be 2 separate operating systems in one computer. And they're wired together to function together. The conscious mind, its purpose is to evaluate, calculate, figure out, analyze, and reach a decision in any subject area whatsoever. Come to a conclusion, this is what I believe. Once it comes to that conclusion, it passes it to the subconscious. The subconscious now accepts what the conscious mind tells it. The subconscious mind does not evaluate, calculate, figure out, compare. All the subconscious mind does, it has one function: instantaneously react without thought. It enables you to be doing all these other things while you're thinking about something else. You don't have to think about every time you pick up your foot. You don't have to think about what to do when the red light goes green to red. All those things are automatic now because somewhere in the past it was already decided for you. You passed that down, told the subconscious mind this is how to react. So the real you is not the conscious mind, it's the subconscious. As a person thinketh in their heart, so are they. As a person instinctively reacts, so are they. See, that's the real you. Let's look at it this way. The conscious mind is seed. The subconscious mind is soil. The soil accepts whatever seed it's given. It will grow it. If the seed comes down as roses, it'll grow roses. If a seed comes down as pines, it'll grow a pine tree. Seed comes down as weeds, it'll grow weeds. So the subconscious mind is going to grow whatever the conscious mind gives it. That's why all successful people I know carefully guard what they see, what they hear, and what they sense. Because they're careful of what seeds they're going to put down there to grow. Because if they put the wrong seeds down there, they're going to grow the wrong harvest, and they're going to have to deal with a harvest they don't want to deal with. So they're input inspectors. So I tell you that because, see, when I had that great turnaround at the dealership, it was exciting, traveling around, speaking, and all the things I was able to involved in, 3 employees to 50 employees in one day, unknown businessman to be on television doing commercials every day, you know, going from just making enough money to making more than enough money, having a beautiful house, and being able to do things I couldn't do before. But in some ways, I was very miserable. And the reason I was miserable is my religious background had taught me he was the God of just enough, not the God of more than enough. It had taught me that if you have more than just what you need, you should feel guilty because it means somebody else has less. Because it was fixed pie thinking. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey's teaching on fixed pie thinking, one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, scarcity mindset people think life is a fixed pie. Meaning if you get more, somebody else has less. Therefore, they fear somebody getting more because it means they're going to have less. Where increased thinking says God just makes the pie bigger. See, and when he makes the pie bigger, I can be a greater blessing in the lives of other people. And so, but I had this guilt. And I had to discover, was God against me having increase? My economic future depended upon that question. Was he the God of more than enough or the God of just enough? And I studied the Bible. I studied the miracles of the Old Testament, Jesus' miracles. And came to the realization that virtually every miracle in the Bible that happened, the people did not come back to where they were. They came back with more than what they had before. They had more than enough. Then I found out that God gave it as one of his names. I'm El Shaddai. See, I thought he was El Cheapo. You know, that he didn't have enough, and I had to live with not enough, but that was the sacrifice I had to make, but it'd be worth it in the heavenly suite by and by when I could walk on streets made with gold. And then I found out he was El Shaddai, that he wanted me to increase. Then I studied the life of Abraham, and I discovered that Abraham was not just a man of great faith. Abraham was a man of great wealth. And I said, if Abraham can be wealthy and close to God, so can I. And I was set free. Kind of. Because remember, the real you is not what you know. The real you is what you are. So I had to go on a program then to change what I discovered, so to change my instincts. Until you change your instincts, you haven't changed. Okay. That's the real key. You can intellectually make a change of confession, a change of word, a change of dress, a change of attire, whatever it might be, and you might look like you've made the change. But if you haven't gone deep down here and changed and got rid of the old limiting beliefs or wrong thinking, then they're gonna come back, and they'll come back at a time of stress, a time of fear, or a time of great opportunity. And all of a sudden, you say, where'd that come from? It came from because you tried to build something new on something old rather than changing the foundation. So I had to change the foundation. How do you do that? Well, 2 ways. Emotional implantation. This is another 30 minutes. You're going to get it in 2. Emotional implantation and repetition. What you continually see and hear, you'll believe. It'll become your belief system. That's how you get most of your beliefs. That's how you change them. So I went out and got 3x5 cards. I wrote key verses. Oh, there's her card. Oh, thank you. That's a real estate agent's card. I thought she left without it. Okay. So I wrote down verses of the Bible. He said, bless me, am I coming in, am I going out in the city and the field? He delighteth in the prosperity of his people. He revealed to me the hidden riches of secret places. He surrounds me with the spirit of favor. Daily he loadeth me with benefits. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I began to confess those in the morning as I go throughout life. And within a period of 30 to 90 days, I totally changed. I drove out that old thing. See, wrong thinking, you can't get rid of it with willpower. You get rid of wrong thinking with right thinking. And I brought that right thinking in. And then I went and I got, listened to teachings, tapes on an increase in abundance. And I read books on increase in abundance. And in 90 days' time, I forever changed my life. And that's what I'm going to challenge you to do today. I believe there's some of you, you've been so focused on all that's been going on in the negative arena, but now I'm going to challenge you to get empowered inside and see what God can do when you have that belief and that expectation for increase being released in your life. So how are you going to do it? Here's my challenge. I'm going to challenge you over the next 30 days to get a bunch of these verses, write them down on cards like I did, or put them in your iPhone, or put them on your iPad, or screensaver, and start confessing those verses over the next 30 days. The second thing I'm going to challenge you to do, listen to teaching on increase and abundance over the next 30 days, and start reading about something on increase and abundance over the next 30 days, and see what God can do for you. Because, see, it changed my life, but it also changed the life of my 5 kids. You can't be around my kids, you can't be around Wendy and not spend a day with her and not hear increase in the way she thinks and does things. You can't be around my 15 grandkids and not hear increase. And their kids are going to be talking increase. Why? Because somebody made a decision, Bob Harrison, that he wasn't going to be trapped by the thinking that had put on him in the past that maybe it was wrong. But he was going to change. And in changing me, I changed everybody I touched. And that's what you can do too. And if you're willing to do that, I want to pray for you, because I believe that increase, miracles, and abundance and creativity is ahead for you. If you're willing to do that, raise your hand. I want to pray for you right now. If you say, I'll do that, let's say this prayer. Father, I come to you today, and I thank you for your word. And your word clearly shows you want me to increase. So I make a decision today. I am going to increase the increase coming in. And I believe, as a result, increase is going to come out, and increase is going to surround my life. And I thank you now, and I praise you for the increase that is coming my way. Now praise and thank him for that increase. Hallelujah, Father. Lord, we just praise you. We thank you for that increase. Oh, praise you. Look at 2 or 3 people around you. Just say to them, increase is coming our way.